the career and technology studies courses that are available for our high school students. So my name is Caroline Gosling. I'm a semi-retired educator. I worked for about 34-ish years with Edmonton Public in a variety of different roles. And within those roles, I was really fortunate to often have mentoring of some type available for students in the school. So I've seen it from that aspect, and also I am a mentor to a young woman who grew up in care, so I've seen it from that side too, and I'm sure as you have as well. Lots of benefits that come from being able to have mentoring in your buildings or in your classroom. So I'd like to find out a little bit about who you are. So if in the chat, you could just put your name, where you're from, and your role, if you've had any experience with the CTS courses, and one thing that you're hoping to get out of this webinar. That's a lot, I know. It would just be helpful to know. So I'll just give everybody a minute to put that in the chat. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Marie-Pierre works at Big Brothers Big Sisters in Calgary. Oh, mentoring coordinator for our community program. Perfect. And Sherry Peace River. No experience, interested in learning. Great. Sylvan Lake. Wanting to learn something new. Okay. Well, hopefully you will learn something new by the end of this. So I'm just going to carry on here. This is really kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So a little bit about the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, in case we have people that aren't familiar. The teen mentoring and specifically the CTS courses, whoops, sorry. And then a project that AMP is involved in right now around a collaborative community network for teen mentoring in schools. Oh, Jody from Exville. Recruitment and credits, great. Callista, youth and care facilitator with BGC Bigs. Okay, perfect. So objectives, a little bit about the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, or AMP as we often shorten it to. So it's a provincial organization. It's kind of it's made up of government ministries, government funded organizations, schools, community agencies, really to look at providing more mentoring opportunities for Alberta's children and youth. So again, knowing that how important mentoring is, AMP looks to support mentoring initiatives in schools and also support community organizations. So Alberta Mentoring Partnership doesn't do direct mentoring themselves, but provides those support and resources for others who do. Whoops, I don't know what just happened there. Oh, sorry. Little buttons are disappearing. Okay, so there's many different definitions of mentoring. You know, we've got mentoring at work, mentoring at the university level. When we look at AMP's focus, it's really around the mentoring of young people. So another individual who's providing a young person with support, advice, friendship over a period of time. We purposely say individual because, again, it doesn't have to be an adult. We can have, as we're going to be talking about today, youth mentoring younger youth. And on that kind of note about younger youth, what the research shows is a 2-year age gap really provides the best results. So just something to keep in mind. And when we think about why we might consider mentoring in our schools, It really supports the welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe learning environments, which are mandated through our Education Act. It really provides that sense of belonging. Right now, we keep hearing about a mental health crisis among our young people. So it really supports the positive mental health of students, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Increased attendance and engagement, and high school completion. And really, when we talk about the CTS credits, for some of our students who are just short 1 or 2 credits for graduating, the CTS mentoring courses can really be a benefit, and it's a way for them to get those last few credits that they may need. The Center for Disease Control did a study a number of years ago, and they found that connectedness to school is the biggest predictor of student success in graduation. So mentoring, as it connects people to others and the school, kind of ties into that high school completion and increased attendance. So there are many different forms of teen mentoring, and the CTS courses are one example of that. So with those courses, we have a way for teens to get the credits, and we'll talk about other forms of teen mentoring as well. So these are the 5 Career and Technology Studies, or CTS, courses that students can get credit for. So they're each a 1 credit course, and 1 credit equates to about 25 hours of class time. In this case, some of that class time would actually be mentoring a young person. So you can see the kind of the titles there. So we have the Introduction to Mentorship. For that particular course, obviously there are no prerequisites. Sometimes schools will pair this with one of the leadership courses. There's an Introduction to Leadership course. And this one, there's really no prerequisites. They learn about the characteristics of positive mentoring. They'll apply those basic mentoring skills to a mentoring relationship. They learn about kind of some of the safety concerns that need to be learned and put in place around mentoring younger people. The Becoming a Mentor, again, they look more closely at the relationship between the mentor and the mentee, how it supports wellness in both individuals and in their community. And they start to build a personal profile about themselves as a mentor. And then Becoming a Mentee, they do some of those same things, but from the perspective of them being a mentee and looking for or finding a mentor. And then Extending the Mentorship Relationship, they look at some of the things around resiliency. They look at different groups within their community and within their school, and how mentoring might look a bit different. And then the last one is the peer mentoring, and it does have a prerequisite of the leadership fundamentals, and so that one is more advanced. So that's kind of the last one in this series. Some schools offer all 5. Some schools offer just the first 3. It really depends on the resources available. Also, there are similarities and similar outcomes, and I'll show you in a bit on the AMP website where you can find information about them and the actual specific outcomes. So there are outcomes that overlap. Some schools will offer these courses in isolation. Others will kind of look at all of them, or at least the first 3, and see where those overlaps are. And some activities can cover outcomes in more than one class at the same time. So a different way to look at how to plan and deliver these courses instead of doing each one of them in isolation. And that way you can have a group of students that over the course of that time can get credits for 3 or 4 of them. So that's a different way of kind of looking at how you might want to offer them. Any questions about this so far? You can either unmute or pop them in the chat, and I'll try to watch for those. Okay. So when we think about offering these CTS credits, there are some things that we need to consider. Oh, yes, they're 1 credit each. So each course 1 credit. So they can earn a total of 5 credits. If they're paired with the leadership course, then they can end up with 6. So there does need to be a certificated teacher who can provide the instruction piece. What some schools have done is they have the teacher that provides the instruction piece, and then they also have, they can be a non-certificated person who can help provide the support for the students when they're actually mentoring. So there's a couple of different options there, but again, for students to be able to get the credit, they do need to have a teacher involved. Some of the other pieces to think about are awareness. It can kind of be a catch-22 because it's sort of like that with determine the student interest, because sometimes schools will want to offer the course, but there isn't the interest, and that might be because students aren't even aware it exists. So, you know, important to get the information out there about the courses early. So maybe in the spring, if you're looking at offering it in the fall, maybe in the fall if it's going to be offered in the second semester. So different ways that schools have made students aware are just through their colleagues and other teachers bringing it up in their classrooms. Other kinds of communications that the school might have. Some of them have those kind of running announcement boards that you can look at. Some of them have the little kind of TVs with information on them. Whatever way that schools communicate to the students, providing some information there so that there is that awareness, and then students who are interested can make that known. Then some of that is when we think about that needing to have a teacher, that's where some of that student interest comes in. So it really depends on whether or not the school has the capacity and the resources for a teacher to teach that class, and sometimes that depends on how many students. So with that determining student interest, sometimes those credits can be a motivating factor for students who want to get into mentoring. Sometimes the idea of mentoring and taking these courses and being able to put that on a resume is also really important for some students who might be going into post-secondary programs or workplaces where they're going to be working with young people. So again, as we look, when we want to talk to students about this, those are some things that might be appealing to them. Recruiting mentors, kind of the same thing. It can just be by interest, those who want to mentor, who see something, who, you know, kind of seek it out. It could also be from teachers or counselors who know those students that are just shy of enough credits to graduate, and you may want to approach them. Often we have students who don't see themselves as being leaders and who may not think that they could be a mentor, but they could really benefit from the experience. So again, sometimes just teacher recommendations or other kinds of recommendations from people who know the youth and know the students, that's often a great place. And, you know, sometimes students are really surprised to be asked, but they really rise to the occasion. And so again, I think sometimes we go and think of our, you know, our brightest students, our students that are in leadership classes, our students that are involved in athletics. But often we have those quiet students, those, the leader, they might be the kids that fly under the radar, but they can make really strong mentors. So I really always encourage people to think about all your students and who might benefit from this. Then it's the idea of who will be your mentees. So you may want to pair up with a junior high that's close by, or maybe an elementary that's close by. If you know people in those schools, that's a great start. Use connections to talk to the schools and see if they have students, whether it be a class or a few students from a class or students from across the school that would be interested in having a mentor and also could benefit from having a mentor. So approaching people in those, generally it's feeder schools or schools that are close by. So trying to get them involved and on board can be sometimes a challenge, but also what we find is there are lots of schools who are very interested in, supplying your mentees, but may not have been approached before or may not know how to go about that. Scheduling, this really varies from school to school and how they timetable their classes. So, a number of years ago now, when Alberta Ed started some of the high school kind of flex schedule work, they really have provided high schools with a variety of ways to provide courses and provide credits for students. So in some high schools, there may be a CTS block built in. There may be other ways of scheduling for those students. I know that, I've heard of a teacher who had 5 kids who were interested. So she actually had them working in their classroom while they also had another class going on. So some really creative ways of doing this. In some schools, the classes can be outside of the regular instructional time, but they still get credits for it, and that teacher is compensated for their time during the day. So there can be some really creative scheduling depending on the school that you're in. And then it's going to be also what's going to work for the mentees in their school. Sometimes it might be over the lunch hour, the actual mentoring piece, and that can be really flexible as well. The location is another consideration, whether the mentors go to the mentee school or whether the mentees come to the mentor school. That can often depend on what is the purpose or some of the outcomes that we're looking for. So, for example, if you have high school mentors mentoring junior high students, sometimes the junior high students might want to be at the high school so they can get a feel for what that high school is like and what high school life is like. Even with the mentees, it's sometimes, if they're elementary, it's sometimes kind of exciting for them to come to the big high school and be with the big kids and see what that's all about. So it really depends on what works. And in some cases, they go back and forth. So they might go, 1 week it might be at the elementary, 1 week it might be at the high school. Depending on where it is, so if they can walk to the school, obviously that's a really easy transportation fix. We don't have to think a lot about it. If they're not close enough to walk, then we get into some other logistics that we need to figure out. Some of the ways that schools have kind of gotten past this challenge of transportation is if the school has a van or a small bus, they can use that to get the students from point A to point B. If there's public transit that's easily accessed, then the students can take the public transit. I've also seen schools approach some of their local service clubs. There are many service clubs like the Lions, Rotary, who are very supportive of mentoring. And some schools have received some funding from those organizations to help pay for the transportation back and forth. One of the big pieces when we talk about any kind of team mentoring is the ongoing support for those mentors. So making sure that, and again, this could be the teacher, it could be the other person the support person, but regular check-ins with the mentors. Some of that is part of the work they need to do to get their credit, but also making sure that they know who they can go to if something goes awry or if they have a question. So usually what happens is in those classes where they're together for their instruction, that's where that kind of checking in would happen. They can keep a journal about their mentoring sessions and how they went and any questions arising from that, and that can be part of that ongoing check-in. Prior to that ongoing support, it would be the training. And so we'll talk a bit about AMP's online mentor training. And that mentor training actually meets a lot of the outcomes from the first CTS course, the Introduction to Mentorship. And then there are some other resources too, specifically the Team Mentoring Handbook, which also covers a lot of the information that mentors need to mentor, but also as part of their CTS course credit. And we'll share some of those resources. So any questions about that? That's a lot of information pretty quickly. We were going to go into breakout rooms, but I think we're a small enough group to just have a group conversation. But I'm curious to know if, after kind of what you've heard, do you see any opportunities kind of for success around implementing these courses or supporting schools to implement them? Anybody have any thoughts or what you're thinking after hearing that? I know often one of the challenges is finding the teacher to teach it. And the good news is they really don't need to have any specific skill set, like you might if you're teaching grade 12 physics. So it can really be a teacher who is interested in spending time with students in a bit of a different way. So that kind of opens it up a little bit. I've also seen schools where counselors have taught this. They have some flexibility in their time. So that's another opportunity. I've seen teacher librarians who may not be certificated, but they become the support people. Sometimes the mentoring takes place in the library, so they're right there to help support the students as they mentor their younger person. So I know that that's one opportunity. I've been in a school where the principal kind of went to a couple of teachers and approached them about doing that because that principal thought they would really be great at it and the kids would respond well to them. So lots of different ways to look at how do you find those people. Okay. So we have a comment that as a mentor coordinator in the community, it's good to know so I can share with the students who need credit. Yeah. And sometimes I think it's the students bringing it up that's the impetus for the school offering it, if it's possible and if they can. So sometimes that's one way to get it into the school and for awareness, because to be honest, there's lots of schools who don't realize that these courses even exist. So getting the word out is a really important first step. What about challenges? As you know, as I've talked, I was going to say we've talked, but it's just been me so far. Do you foresee any challenges that you might come up against? Again, feel free to unmute. Okay. In addition to the CTS courses, there are many other forms of school-based mentoring, which you may be very aware of. So when we think about school-based mentoring, it's often mentors who come into our school. Sometimes it's our students going out to other schools for mentoring. So it may involve a community partner. And in our group today, we have people from Big Brothers Big Sisters and other mentoring organizations. And you know, if you live in a community where there is a mentoring organization and they have the capacity to support your school, it's a wonderful opportunity. And I've been the recipient of that in some of the schools where I was a principal. So that's one way, whether they are coordinating a teen mentoring initiative in the school or helping to recruit and coordinate adults coming into the school. There's also examples of corporate mentoring that aren't school-based, in that the mentors aren't coming to the school, but it is students who are going to the businesses. So that's another example of mentoring involving students in school, and that corporate mentoring generally takes place during school time. Sometimes, and I know we have somebody from Calgary here, during COVID, they had a really successful pen pal mentoring program. So when people couldn't meet face to face, it was, via writing, which was really kind of another cool way to bring that mentoring in. When schools don't have the luxury of an organization to help support them, there are still ways that you can start those more informal mentoring initiatives with outside of the CTS credits. And we'll share some resources around that as well. There are also lots of ways that mentoring can start really informally. So I think about at all levels, whether it's elementary or junior high or senior high, where those opportunities are. So in elementary school, often there are reading buddy programs. So older students are paired with younger students and they read with them once a week or something like that. It's a really great opportunity to strengthen that relationship by adding in some activities to that time that aren't just reading. So some activities that can deepen the relationship between those two students before they start reading or after they start reading. So that's an example of informal mentoring. Some schools have cross-graded activities. Some schools have cross-graded homeroom. Again, a really wonderful informal opportunity for older students to get to know younger students, and for the younger students to be able to benefit from what those older students can bring, their experiences, just what they know, being able to have fun together. That's another really informal kind of way. And sometimes that can spark the interest in a more formal mentoring initiative. And then transition mentors, there's some really great work being done around helping our students transition from one school to the next. So for example, having a grade 8 class mentor a grade 6 class of students who are going to be coming to that junior high. And again, often those grade 6 students will go to the junior high. So they start to become familiar with the layout of the building, with what it's like in a junior high in the hallways during a break when they're switching classes. They'll do things like practice opening combination locks, because for a lot of grade 6s, that's one of their anxieties about going to junior high. So there's been lots of really good work there. And then at the beginning of the school year, their mentors will meet those new grade 6s on their first day of school, which alleviates, again, a lot of that anxiety that they might be feeling. Similarly, with high schools, there's often grade 11 students who are paired with grade 9 students. In those cases, often somebody at the junior high has identified the grade 9 students that they feel are going to have a more difficult time with that transition. And then the reason for picking the grade 8 students and the grade 11 students is because they will actually be at that school the next year when those grade 6s or grade 9s begin. And that's becoming, that seems to be becoming more and more popular. Often it starts in the second half of the year. So starting back in January, sometimes it starts after spring break. And then sports and coaching, so those teams which often have a variety of ages there. It may not be the 2-year age gap, but another great opportunity for older students to mentor younger students, whether it's in that specific sport, it can be around sportsmanship, lots of those different opportunities for some informal mentoring that can be really, really valuable and start planting the seeds for perhaps more formal mentoring. So some of the benefits for our mentors, and this is whether they are adults or students, that idea about feeling more positive about their school or workplace, that often results in better attendance. There's a real increase in empathy for others because often the mentor's life experience can be quite different from their mentees, and they start to learn about what life looks like for other people and other people who might be different from them in a variety of ways. We see improved social skills and pro-social behavior. I know that I was principal at a K-9 school, and we had in Edmonton Public, we have classes where students who have been assessed as having some significant behavior concerns, we put them together in a class. I'm not always sure that that's the best thing to do, but anyway, that's the way it is. So we had a class of junior high boys in this particular school, and we paired them up with some grade 1 students to help them with their reading, so reading buddies. And it was amazing to see the changes in those grade 9 students' behaviors and language when they were with those little grade 1 kids, but also in the hall. And it was really interesting to see them because the students were kind of scattered around the building. So it was really interesting to see those particular students comment on other students' language around the little kids. So just, it really had that, it rippled out from just when they were with them into the hallways. So really a cool result around that pro-social behavior and social skills. We also see improved academic achievement of our mentors, increased motivation, increased capacity for teamwork. Often that comes from when the mentors get together and they have an opportunity to problem solve and talk about what's going on during their mentoring sessions. And then again, that idea of fostering a stronger understanding around the diversity that exists among our students in our schools today. Any comments about those? Questions? Nope. Okay. And then specifically, because right now we're so conscious and aware of mental well-being among our young people, this is what the research is showing is the benefits from a mental health perspective. So more positive affect attributed to social support and altruism. In some of the mentoring programs that involve some physical activity with the students, the mentors really talked about how it provided a break from the other stressors in their lives. So for example, the Indigenous Youth Mentoring Program is really centered around physical activity, as well as that building relationships through physical activity. So something to think about as well. We know that that physical activity can really help us regulate. So both for the mentors and the mentees. Improve self-confidence. Again, they are doing something meaningful. They're finding opportunities to solve problems on their own, and that increases that self-confidence. And then again, that idea of improved resilience. from that, being part of that group of mentors and being able to meet those challenges and figure some things out on their own. And then for the mentee, this was a study, this was actually a Canadian study that was done. So when they looked at what were the benefits to the mentee, they found some of these things. I don't know if anything there surprises you. Please pop it in the chat if it does. Anything you have a question about? Sometimes people ask about the more likely to participate in extracurricular school activities, and why is that important? But a couple of reasons. We know that those out of school time hours are really critical. So if they are participating in some of those extracurricular activities, they're busy after school, which is important. Also, it speaks to that connectedness to school. So those extracurricular activities are engaging students in school, and if they're after school, they're still more likely to be engaged during the day. Yeah, Sherry, they are pretty impressive. And then when we look at, again, focusing on the mental well-being, what studies show is that the mentees feel heard and listened to. And I think we all know how important it is to feel heard. And so during that time, they have one person who is there to listen to them and be present with them. And they don't have to share that person with anybody else during that time that they're together. Mentees describe feeling less isolated. And sometimes they may not feel like they really belong, which is kind of the last bullet there too, that increased sense of belonging and acceptance. And that idea of decreasing anxiety. There's some of you may be familiar with Tim Cavall. He's a researcher from the States that does a lot of research around mentoring and specifically team mentoring. And he did a study thinking that it would actually not be as successful around lunchtime mentoring. And so there was a school that, I don't know if he was in one school or more than one, but they identified students who spent a lot of time alone. So those students that didn't have a lot of social connections at school, and they paired them with some athletes from the local high school. And so these athletes would come to the school, it was junior high, and eat lunch with these students. And it actually was successful. So it was not the outcome that he had anticipated. But what they found happening was other students wanted to come and join in that lunch conversation because these athletes, of course, were cool. They were the cool people from the high school. And so other students wanted to be part of that. And so through that kind of person who had social capital eating with somebody else, it increased their social capital. And so the result was that those students ended up making more connections, having more friends through just that lunchtime mentoring activity. So again, not super formal, but another way to bring that idea of belonging, acceptance, feeling less isolated into our schools and for our students. And I know there are communities where they have pretty high level community sports teams, and often those teams will mentor in the schools because the coaches really think it's important for those individuals to give back. So that can be another source of mentors depending on the community that you're in. We just have a little video of some benefits and some different people talking about how mentoring has impacted students in their school. So, of course, this worked when I practiced. So hopefully it'll work now. And there might be some ads at the beginning. If so, I apologize, but we will give this a try.
At Alberta Mentoring Partnership, our vision is that every child or youth who needs a mentor has access to a mentor.
I can't
Our
see
mission
the
is to
video. I
grow
don't know if
sustainable
anyone else
mentoring
can.
across Alberta through a shared services approach. Mentoring offers the power to transform lives and make a difference.
Can other people see it, or is it just me that can't? I just want to make sure that.
Lori been my big sister for 6.5 years. I care about her and I think about her mostly every day.
Every single moment you spend with that child, it's an investment in our kids' future.
I think
Kids,
because all we're seeing is your PowerPoint presentation right now.
Well, that's weird. Okay.
So yeah, so something with the screen sharing we'll just have to figure out.
Okay, let's try this. Oh. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can.
Can others see it now? Audio, no video. Oh, can see it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's back this up and try it again. Okay, and Ashley, you can let me know if it's working.
Sounds good.
At Alberta Mentoring Partnership, our vision is that every child or youth who needs a mentor has access to a mentor. Our mission is to grow sustainable mentoring across Alberta through a shared services approach. Mentoring offers the power to transform lives and make a difference.
Lori been my big sister for 6.5 years. I care about her and I think about her mostly every day.
every single moment you spend with that child, it's an investment in our kids' future.
Kids tell me that their mentors are their best friends. Kids say that it's the best part of their week, or it's the reason they come to school on Wednesday because their mentor's coming. So there's always lots of positive feedback from our kids about what they love about having mentors, and especially teen mentors who are invested in their lives.
I like being mentored because if you ever have problems, they can help you. They're always there for you and they're really nice. I'm glad that I have a mentor.
There's been tons of research out there that has been done that supports the benefits from mentoring children and youth. Things like better attendance at school, more connected to school, better relationships, less use of drugs and alcohol. So it's a proven strategy that works, and so we needed to make sure that Albertans knew how important mentoring was for kids and youth.
When I was in school mentoring, we played board games, talk about school, careers, and all that, and about like sisters, family, about stuff that my sisters don't talk about. It's important to me because it's to have a good friend.
I have a big sister, and it's cool to have her because she's just really fun and she gets to meet all my friends.
She's just such a cool kid. Like, she's just awesome. She brings out the kid in me, and I like to hope I bring out something special in her.
It's a win-win situation. It positively impacts both parties in the relationship. It adds to the sense of community, to the sense of being connected to community. It builds self-esteem.
I just think that knowing there's someone's there, I feel better about myself. And it's not just thinking that you're on your own, that you do have someone else to turn to.
Couldn't ask to be a volunteer with a better run, better organized organization, that every single person involved in the organization cares.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. There are so many kids out there that need a mentor in their lives. This is so important. When a child knows that you're there for them no matter what, it does powerful things.
For training and support materials, as well as more information on how you can be a mentor, start a program, or find a mentoring program that's right for you, go to www.albertamentors.ca.
Stop dieting. Seriously, don't bother.
Okay. So that's just kind of some examples and some people from different schools who have been implementing teen mentoring, and some of them the CTS courses. on what they're finding. I love the comments from the mentors and the mentees. It really kind of drives it home about why this is worth the investment of time and energy. So some of the resources, I talked about some of them, and I will share some of them now. So on the Alberta Partnership, Mentoring Partnership website, and again, let's hope this works. So are we seeing the website? Nope. Oh, geez. Okay. Try this again. I don't know why it's not coming up here. Maybe this will. Now are you seeing it? Yes, excellent. So if you go to the website and go to resources, there are specific resources for mentoring in schools. So a couple of are highlighted there, but if you just click on the mentoring resources piece, they'll all come up. So a couple of these, this toolkit for building mentoring relationships in schools is more of a general look at things to consider when you're starting a mentoring initiative, not necessarily the CTS courses. So there's some good information in there and some good templates at the back of things to consider when you're initially thinking about bringing mentoring into your school. This one is one of the ones that I was talking about, these high school team mentoring resources. So the picture is of the activity book, but there's also a handbook. So the handbook is really, it goes through, it's written for high school students. It goes through what they need to know around mentoring a young person. So it talks about communication skills. It talks about different developmental levels and what can they expect from their mentee if their mentee is 7 or if their mentee is 11, and those kinds of things. And then the activity book just has ideas for what students can do with their mentees during their time together. So that's a really good resource. They're all downloadable. They're all free. Also, AMP has a big stash of hard copies in their offices. So if you're not able to print them off for whatever reason, if you get a hold of probably Al at AMP, he will be able to get help you to get some sent out to wherever you are. So I'm just going to quickly put his email in here. I hope this is his email. Hang on. There we go. So that's kind of critical when it comes to the CTS courses. Also, if you have less formal mentoring, there's some still really good pieces that you can pull out of there. So that was one I wanted to look at, and maybe the other one's not connected in here. Oh, and then here there's information about all the different courses, those 5 courses. It's also available in French. And if you click on the download course, you get all the specific outcomes that are part of that course. So lots of information on there. The other resource that I wanted to show you was this team mentoring toolkit. So again, this is like the DIY resource to start team mentoring in your school, especially if you don't have the support of an outside organization. So it goes through all the different, again, things that you need to consider. They're all right here, and you can click on one and you get that particular section. There's all kinds of templates that are in Word, so you can adapt them, whether it's an application form to be a team mentor, a form to send home to get permission, they're all part of this team mentoring toolkit. So again, really useful. It's being updated right now. So it will be, all the links will work very soon in the new year. It's needed some revising, so it's in that process right now. And then the other resource that I just touched on was this online orientation for mentors. So this is the sort of an initial training. It is also free. It's online. It takes about an hour. You can stop and start. So if you have students and they could only have a certain amount of time, they can stop and then pick it up again where they left off. You can also get the printout version of it to follow along. When I did this with students, I like to have them all together, but on their own devices. And then that way, if we're all together, we can stop, we can have a conversation. I can give some more explanation, make sure they understand, answer any questions that they have, and then move on. And if they're all on their individual devices, they can all get a certificate at the end of that. If you have them all together on one big screen, it's more difficult to do that. So that's the online training. And then I was also going to show you. So part of this initiative that AMP got some funding for was around creating this collaborative community network. And so as part of that, there is this portal, this Team Mentoring in Schools portal. And so you sign up for that. It's really simple. It's just you just have to go in and down here and create a new account, and you will get your information to log in right away. And so I'm just going to go in because there's one thing in here that I wanted to show people that's specific to, well, of course, specific to the CTS courses. Okay, yay. So you'll see in here, there's kind of the dashboard and all the different topics and things that you can get involved in or find out about. So this is what it looks like. There's all kinds of different information and discussions. Here's the piece about the career and technology studies. And there's the course info there. But this is what I wanted to share. So there's a woman by the name of Latoya Bartlett. She was a high school teacher in Fort Vermilion. And she was one of the first ones to take a group of students through all five of the courses. And so she developed a lot of tools that she used while she was doing that. And she shared them all on this website. So you can go on here and look at her rubric about how she marked it, parent forms. She had a chart of the credits and where they overlapped and how she taught that. She has an example of the weekly planner that she would use with her students. So lots of resources here that are can be really valuable and helpful that you can adapt for your own purposes. And she also emailed me. She was hoping to be here today, but she couldn't. She's now in Grassland School Division. She's a principal, but still quite heavily involved in mentoring. So she said I could share her email with all of you. And so if you have any specific questions about the CTS courses or anything like that, you can feel free to contact her. And her information is in the chat. So that is all of that information, the resources. So hopefully that is helpful for you. And again, they're all at no cost, and you can download them from the website. This is just a little bit about, so that portal is part of this grant. So AMP received private funding to support mentoring in schools and specifically teen mentoring. So that's where a lot of the webinars that we're doing, the funding for that has come from, as well as for that portal, and as well as for the review and revisions of our team mentoring resources. So some of these have passed, but we do have a couple of webinars coming up. So on November 15th, we've got one about stories from the field. So different people who are doing different kinds of mentoring in their schools will be sharing that with us. And then on December 6th, we're going to really kind of take some time to dig into the resources that we have on team mentoring. And the registration for those webinars are again on the website. They're after school, so they're 4 till 5:30, and they are also at no cost. Oh, I got Al's email wrong. Sorry, it's at albertamentors.ca. So again, if you would like hard copies of any of those resources, you can contact Al. And you're certainly welcome to contact me. Sarah Chan is AMP's lead for community engagement. So any of these individuals here will be able to help you out if you have any questions. So again, we're kind of at the end in the question part. So feel free to ask any questions that you have in the chat or unmute. And also, if there are things that you want to know more about as well, please feel free to put those in the chat, because it's often feedback from sessions like this that we look at when we're planning our upcoming webinars. So if there aren't any questions, then we can wrap up. And I know that there's a bit of a closing coming up to the summit, and you can log off here and log in there. Oh, Jody, yeah, the online resources and lesson plans. Yes, they're the work that Latoya did was great, and she was very generous to share that.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline, and thanks everyone for being here.
Okay. So yeah, thanks everybody for attending, and good luck with your mentoring initiatives. And again, please feel free to reach out if you have questions or need anything.
Sounds great. Well, we'll let you all get to the closing presentation then. Well, it was lovely to meet you, Caroline.
You too, Ashley. Okay, maybe we'll see you again.
Yes, you never know.
Yeah. Okay.
Have a good afternoon.
You too.